Hello, listeners. Today is April 7th, 2025, and you're tuned into The Path to Calm. Stop overthinking, become present, and find peace. Our motto for the podcast remains true, because a calm mind leads to a peaceful life. Today's episode is from the book 80/20 Your Life, written by Nick Trenton, which explores an intriguing concept: achieving more with less effort and action through mental and emotional abundance. You can get your hands on this insightful read or listen via Amazon, iTunes, or Audible for the audiobook version. For those who prefer to explore further, the author's website is conveniently located at bit.ly/Nick Trenton. This book invites readers to discover what truly matters in life by applying the 80/20 rule, a principle that helps individuals focus on the vital few rather than getting lost in the trivial many. By adopting this rule, you can elevate your personal effectiveness and achieve more significant results with less effort. During today's episode, we'll delve into Chapter 2 of Nick Trenton's book, which explores the 80/20 rule as a life principle. We'll also discuss some common misconceptions to ensure that our listeners have a comprehensive understanding of this powerful concept. Join us on The Path to Calm as we uncover the secrets to maximizing your potential and finding peace through effective action. So far, we've looked at many examples of the Pareto principle in the world around us. Once you start to look for it, you may see it everywhere. But the point is not just to observe the principle in effect, but to find ways we can actively use this insight to improve our own lives. Doing so might be challenging at first, primarily because it may require you to reorient and modify the way you approach different situations, tasks, and problems. Old habits die hard, but if we wish to optimize our personal lives, this is a small sacrifice in the interest of self-improvement and exponential growth. You can start doing this today by understanding 3 simple rules. Less is more, always work backwards, and most things don't matter. The first step toward reorienting your life to fully exploit the 80/20 rule is to try and understand that less is more. We're constantly told that we must do more and more to achieve good results. This is often because we aren't confident in our abilities to perform the essentials of what is required in various situations. In life, there is so much we can't control, but we can counter this somewhat by throwing everything we can at a problem, pulling out all the stops and ramping up the effort. The underlying but incorrect assumption is that effort is proportional to outcome. So if we're unsure about what to do next, we may just double down on what we're doing instead of pausing to consider whether we should be doing it at all. As a result, we fill our schedules to the brim, so they're packed for weeks and months on end. After all, everyone else seems to be doing the same thing. Regardless of whether this strategy actually works for us, it feels like it does. By putting in massive amounts of not necessarily productive effort, we can assure ourselves, at least I put in the work, even if it didn't get us the results we wanted. But it's perfectly possible to work hard, to put in the hours, and to slog away, but come up with no real result at the end of it all. Being your own slave driver will not necessarily win you any prizes. It's more a question of the efficiency and appropriateness of your efforts rather than their raw intensity. This need to overcompensate and do as much as we possibly can has 2 major downsides. Firstly, there are negative implications for our well-being. As we struggle to juggle the many obligations we've filled our calendars with, we tend to prioritize them over everything that is dear to us, be it our physical and mental health, social lives, families, interests, or leisure time. All of it ceases to matter when we pressure ourselves into believing that more work is the only way to be successful. The other downside is that we make all these sacrifices for returns that are usually not worthwhile and could have been achieved with much less effort anyway. More often than not, We do this simply to ensure that we don't regret not trying harder and to avoid dealing with the uneasiness that comes with feeling like you should be doing more. However, once you learn to use the 80-20 principle effectively, the positive results you experience will help you cope with these doubts and fears because you'll have seen firsthand that less can indeed be more. Our second rule is to work backwards. Knowing your end goal will make applying the 80-20 rule in your personal life significantly easier. The lack of a defined goal inevitably means that we spend our time on tasks that seem related to our ultimate objective but are often not, or are only loosely connected. If you understand your goal clearly, you're more likely to understand exactly what impacts the goal and what doesn't. When you identify a clear, direct line between your efforts now and how they bring your goal to life, you can tune out the noise and distraction along the way. If you don't have a goal and clear focus, you risk getting bogged down in irrelevant details that do nothing to bring you closer to your desired end. If your goal is a fuzzy be healthier, then you may waste time buying useless exercise gear or gimmicky diet supplements, or spend ages planning out a new workout routine that ultimately has no chance of giving you the results you're after. And how could it, when you're not even sure yourself of the results you're after? You end up getting tangled in details while the goal remains unrealized. These details are often the small filler tasks we choose to do first instead of the harder ones. Completing them might feel like you're slowly but steadily making progress toward your goal, but as the old adage goes, no pain, no gain. If it feels easy, it probably isn't providing you with much return on your efforts. For example, let's say you've decided to start eating healthy. You ditch all the junk food for veggies, fruits, and salads. But what is the ultimate goal here? Are you trying to lose weight or gain muscle? Depending on your answer, what you need to eat can change substantially. If you don't start out with a clear goal, you might deprive yourself of your favorite foods without making any progress toward your goal. On the other hand, with a crystal clear end goal, you could decide on an appropriate diet much sooner and consequently see results faster. To aid you in the process of zeroing in on your ultimate goal, make a list of all the tasks you need to do in a given situation. Flag the ones that are most important to the completion of your project and tackle those first. The last step is to realize that most things don't matter. Another way you'll want to modify your approach to make better use of the 80-20 principle is to first ask yourself plenty of questions depending on the situation you find yourself in. Say you find yourself navigating a rough patch in your relationship. Ask yourself things like, what are 2 or 3 of the biggest issues plaguing my relationship? Or, what is the one thing I can improve about myself to ameliorate these issues? Notice that both of these questions focus on the biggest factors relating to your issues with your partner, but not all factors. Answer these questions honestly, and then start doing the things you need to do. So, if you think you could be more open and forthcoming with your partner, make an active effort to do so. Of course, this is easier said than done. Often, the biggest tasks and problems make us the most anxious. This makes us run away and avoid them while we turn our focus towards smaller problems that seem more manageable. We enjoy the illusion of making progress when, in reality, the problem is unsolved or even worsened. This is the second step that accompanies asking yourself tough questions and following through on the tough answers they come with. Here's another example of how to perform this 2-step technique. Let's assume you want to build your muscle mass and improve your fitness level. Ask yourself questions like these. What are the 2 most beneficial habits I can adopt that will have the biggest long-term impact on my fitness? What are 2 or 3 of the worst habits that I need to eliminate to become a healthy individual? What are the biggest lifestyle barriers preventing me from maintaining a healthy routine? Some common answers to these questions might be drinking more water, tracking your calories, and cutting down on smoking, drinking, and junk food or long working hours, respectively. While all of this might sound like a tall order, incorporating these changes into your lifestyle is incomparably easier than slogging it out tirelessly at a gym without having these habits in place. As such, you can make a few daunting but effective lifestyle changes instead of simply hitting the gym day in and day out without seeing the results that depend on these essential habits. A similar approach can be followed in any area of your life. If you're looking for an example set of questions to ruminate over, here are some suggestions to get you started. What are the biggest distractions that disrupt my workflow? What are the best ways I can cut down on major expenses to save more money? Which possessions of mine are the most expendable? Which activities do I enjoy least and can be eliminated from my routine? Who are the people in my life that bring me the most joy and stability? What are the biggest stressors in my life, and what can I do about them? What are the best habits I can incorporate which have the most net positive effect on my life? Reading, healthier eating, etc. Once you've carried out these steps a few times and gained some practice, you're likely to notice a shift in your mindset and approach toward daily life and goals. You'll experience a heightened clarity and a sense of purpose or focus. Changing the way you think will remain a process that takes time, but any progress in that direction will prepare you for the next steps towards implementing the 80-20 principle in your life more holistically. A word of caution: this is where we discuss the potential dangers and the ways the 80-20 rule might be used incorrectly. Some of these mistakes have already been discussed briefly, but we'll go into greater depth here. There are several common misconceptions surrounding the Pareto principle. Let's consider each of them. Misconception 1. The numbers always need to be 80-20. This is the most obvious assumption because these numbers are stated in the rule itself, so it's natural to use them as guidelines in your applications. Furthermore, most criticisms of the Pareto principle are based on this misconception. It's argued that those numbers only apply to a limited number of scenarios, but there's actually no rule about a rigid ratio of 80-20. The main relevance of using these two numbers is to illustrate the lopsided relationship between input and output. The ratio can be 99-1, 70-5, 82-10, and so on. Later in the book, we'll look at how this principle can apply to more abstract concepts like relationships or general well-being and happiness, which are naturally impossible to quantify. This is why it's important to realize that the numbers in the 80-20 rule are purely illustrative and meant to convey an unbalanced relationship, however we quantify it, or even whether we quantify it or not. Misconception 2. The numbers need to add up to 100. The fact that the numbers add up to 100 is only because that's the original distribution Pareto discovered in Italy regarding its population and land ownership. In truth, the numbers could add up to any number greater or less than 100. This is because there will be many aspects in a situation that simply don't contribute anything or are neutral. So if you have to do 10 tasks, don't automatically assume that around 2 of them are the most important. Instead, use your judgment to gauge which of the tasks are most significant and spend the bulk of your energy on them. Misconception 3. The 80-20 rule encourages laziness. Given the constant emphasis on doing less rather than more, it's easy to think that the Pareto principle condones doing only the least amount of work, i.e., that it's great for the laziest among us. But nothing could be further from the truth. To truly understand this principle, we need to completely shift our understanding of what doing less means. What counts is results and outcomes. If you expend less energy achieving the same result as someone else who spends more energy achieving the same thing, then it's not that you've done less or they've done more. Rather, One path was more elegant, direct, and efficient than the other. The insistence on doing less is inseparable from the focus on being efficient and productive. This requires careful planning, cultivating good judgment, and staying disciplined. Laziness will almost certainly guarantee failure. Misconception 4. The 80% can be ignored entirely. This misconception is probably a result of the Pareto Principle's glorification of the 20% that's most important across different scenarios, but this does not mean that the remaining 80% can be ignored. After all, nobody can consistently ignore less important aspects of life. Presidents still have to brush their teeth. Top athletes still have to file tax returns. The idea is just to spend the least amount of time possible on these less crucial aspects while prioritizing the 20%. Even if you choose to delegate 80% of your work that you deem comparatively unimportant, you'll still need to track and manage it to ensure that that part is being carried out appropriately as well. Yes, it's not your priority, but it doesn't mean you can completely ignore it.
Well, there you have it. A deep dive into how the 80-20 rule can revolutionize your life and help you achieve more with less effort. It's all about focusing on what truly matters and optimizing your energy expenditure. Remember, as Nick Trenton so eloquently puts it in his book, 80-20 Your Life, we should aim to work smarter rather than harder, especially when it comes to busy work that doesn't contribute much value. By working backward from clear goals and understanding which factors matter most, you can make significant progress without getting bogged down minute by minute. So, how do you plan on incorporating these principles into your life? Remember, start small. Identify one area where you feel overwhelmed or stuck, and apply the 80-20 rule to simplify it. Ask those SMART questions. What are the biggest rewards I can achieve here? What costs or obstacles might I face? And what brings me joy in this process? If you found this episode insightful, be sure to check out Nick Trenton's website at bit.ly/Nick Trenton for more information on productivity and mental abundance. And if you're ready to dive into the deeper 80-20 philosophy, his book, 80-20 Your Life, is available on Amazon, while the audiobook, of course, can be found on Audible, iTunes, or your preferred audiobook platform. That's all for this episode of The Path to Calm. Stop overthinking, become present, find peace. Join me next time as we continue exploring strategies for a calmer, more purposeful life. Until then, remember, most things don't matter in the grand scheme. So focus on what does and live your best, most productive life.